All right, so today we're going deep on something that's kind of hard to avoid these days, right?
Yeah.
AI, artificial intelligence.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
But we're not just going to toss around buzzwords.
Yeah. Right.
We're going to really dig into how this stuff is already changing, like how you work, how you connect with people online, even how you think.
It's kind of wild when you think about it.
Yeah, they go at it from a few different angles,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Yeah.
Like how AI is shaking up the job market, all that talk about robots taking our jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Then there's the whole social media thing,
All right.
like how AI is shaping what you see and who you interact with online.
Yeah, and those deep fakes everyone's talking about.
Those are scary.
Yeah, they can really mess with your sense of what's real.
Exactly. And then there's this deeper question about whether all this AI is actually changing the way we think as humans.
Yeah, like is it making us lazy or less creative or something?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're going to unpack today.
I think it's going to be a fascinating debate.
So let's jump right in, shall we? Let's start with jobs. AI and the future of work.
Okay.
One of the sources we have actually had this interesting take. It's not just about AI taking over jobs completely.
Right.
It's also creating new ones.
Totally. And it's not always the kind of jobs you'd expect either.
Yeah, like what I'm thinking, robots doing all the factory work, but...
Yeah, that's happening to some extent, but there's also this whole other layer.
Okay.
It's like, we need people who can talk to the AI, who can translate between us and the machines.
Interesting, like AI whispers or something.
Exactly, AI whispers. I love that.
So what would that even involve? Like, what skills would you need?
Well, you definitely need some technical know-how, right? You got to understand how the AI works at least a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it's not just about the techie stuff.
Okay.
It's also about communication and problem solving and being able to adapt quickly,
So it's like a mix of hard skills and soft skills.
Exactly, a hybrid kind of role.
Yeah. So for all the young folks listening, thinking about their careers, this is kind of a heads up, right?
For sure, the job market is changing fast, and AI is a big part of that.
Yeah, you got to be ready to learn new things constantly.
Absolutely, the ability to learn and adapt is going to be huge.
And it's not just about those AI whisperer roles, right?
No way.
There's also this whole thing about humans and AI working together, like collaborating.
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting.
So instead of AI replacing us completely, it's more like AI becoming this super powerful tool that we can use.
Right. Think of it like an assistant that can process massive amounts of data and spot patterns that we humans might miss.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So it frees us up to focus on the stuff that AI isn't so good at yet, like creativity and strategy and complex decision making.
So we see examples of this happening already, right?
Absolutely. In healthcare, for instance, AI is helping doctors diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately by analyzing medical images.
Wow.
And in finance, AI is helping analysts predict market trends and make better investment decisions.
So it's like AI is boosting our productivity
Yeah.
and helping us make smarter decisions in all sorts of fields.
Exactly. But it's not all rosy. There's some serious ethical considerations, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, who's responsible when an AI makes a mistake?
Good point, especially in fields like healthcare or finance where the stakes are high.
Right. And then there's the whole issue of bias. AI is only as good as the data it's trained on.
And if the data is biased, then the AI will be biased too.
Exactly. So we need to be really careful about how we develop and deploy these systems.
Yeah, and make sure there's always human oversight.
Absolutely. Humans need to stay in the loop.
Okay, so we've talked about jobs now. Let's shift gears to something a little more personal.
Okay.
Social media.
Right.
Everyone's on it these days.
Pretty much.
But what a lot of people don't realize is how much AI is shaping their experience on these platforms.
Yeah, it's all happening behind the scenes.
Exactly. It's these algorithms that are deciding what you see in your feed, who you get recommended to follow, what ads you see.
And it's all based on your data, what you share, who you interact with.
Right. So it's like this giant feedback loop. The more you use social media, the more data you generate, and the better the AI gets at predicting your behavior.
Exactly. And that's where things can get a little tricky.
Okay. How so?
Well, on the one hand, this personalized experience can be pretty convenient, right? You see more of the stuff you like, less of the stuff you don't.
Yeah, I guess.
But on the other hand, it can create these filter bubbles or echo chambers where you're only exposed to information and opinions that already align with your own.
Right, so you're not getting a balanced perspective.
Exactly, and that can lead to polarization and misinformation.
Because you're not being challenged to think critically about different viewpoints.
Right, and one of the sources even suggests that people who primarily get their news from algorithmically curated feeds are more likely likely to believe misinformation.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah, it's like the AI is actually making it harder to tell what's true and what's not.
And then there's the whole issue of AI being used to moderate content on these platforms.
Right, trying to weed out the bad stuff like hate speech and bullying.
But that's a huge challenge, right?
It is, the volume of content is just overwhelming.
And AI isn't perfect at it?
Not at all. There are tons of examples of AI getting it wrong, censoring stuff that's perfectly fine and letting through stuff that's actually harmful.
So it's like a constant battle between freedom of speech and protecting people from harm.
Exactly. And it's not clear that AI alone is the answer.
Yeah, it seems like we need human oversight in there somewhere.
Definitely. We can't just leave it all to the machines.
Okay, so speaking of things that can mess with your sense of reality.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about deepfakes.
Those are seriously creepy.
Yeah, for anyone who might not know what a deepfake is.
Basically, it's a video or audio recording that's been manipulated using AI to make it look or sound like someone is saying or doing something they never actually said or did.
So you could make it look like someone is confessing to a crime they didn't commit or saying something really controversial.
Exactly. And the technology is getting so good that it's becoming harder and harder to tell the difference between a real video and a deep fake.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem, right? Because it erodes our trust in what we see and hear online.
Absolutely. And it's not just about spreading misinformation. It can also be used for harassment and blackmail and even political manipulation.
And young people are especially vulnerable to this because they're so immersed in the digital world.
For sure. They're growing up in a world where it's becoming increasingly difficult to know what's real and what's not.
So what can we do about it?
Well, one thing is education. We need to teach people how to spot deep fakes and to be more critical of the information they consume online.
Like media literacy skills.
Exactly, being able to evaluate sources and think critically about what you're seeing and hearing.
And there's also the legal side of things, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate about how to regulate deepfakes and who should be held responsible for creating and spreading them.
It's a tricky issue because it involves free speech and censorship and all sorts of complex legal questions.
Totally. It's going to take a lot of work to figure this out.
Okay, so we've talked about jobs and social media and deepfakes.
Yeah.
Now let's get even deeper.
Okay.
Let's talk about how AI might be affecting the way we think.
That's getting into some pretty philosophical territory.
Yeah, but it's important to think about, right? Because we're relying on AI more and more for everything from making decisions to solving problems to even just getting information.
And the question is all this AI making us dumber?
Or less creative or less able to think for ourselves.
Right. Like if we're constantly outsourcing our thinking to algorithms, are we losing the ability to think critically and independently?
Yeah, it's like that saying, use it or lose it.
Exactly. If we don't use our brains, they might atrophy.
So what can we do to prevent that?
Well, one thing is to be mindful of how much we're relying on AI and to make an effort to engage our brains regularly. Do puzzles, read books, have challenging conversations.
And to be skeptical of the information that AI is giving us.
Right. Don't just take it at face value, question it. Think about where it's coming from and what biases might be baked into it.
Because AI is a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Exactly. It's up to us to use it wisely.
So there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the weird and wonderful world of AI.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
But I think it's important to be aware of how this technology is shaping our world and to start asking questions about what kind of future we want to create with it.
Absolutely. It's a future that we all have a stake in.
And that's something for you to ponder as you go about your day. How is AI already affecting your life? And what do you want its role to be in the future?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with.
Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.
See ya.